As a business owner, are you able to safeguard every possible emergency that could pop up in your world? Probably not, but we're going to talk about that. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker, and on this podcast, we talk to all sorts of different successful people because we want to learn what they've learned that's made them so successful in their career. And it's not just about their successes, it's about their failures. Because while a smart person can learn from their mistakes, a genius can learn from the mistakes of others. So let's talk about those failures so that we can either avoid them completely or we can learn to fail faster. I am so honored and grateful to bring on our guest for today. I have had the immense pleasure of working with her for my own personal family and seen some wonderful transformation, and I'm excited to share her with all of you. Her name is Regina Spencer, and she is the owner and founder of Spencer & Associates Therapeutic Alliance, located in the Northwest Houston area. Regina Spencer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Well, we didn't meet under the greatest of circumstances. It was a bit of crisis on my end,
Very
but
true.
you did such a wonderful job of bringing us through that into a really awesome place that we are now. And I know that you do that for so many other people. So I'm excited to share you and your team of wonderful counselors and therapists to the world. So tell us a little bit more about Spencer & Associates Therapeutic Alliance.
So we are a group of therapists who we believe in strengths-based services. So all of us have challenges and all of us have strengths. And so our focus is using whatever strengths we have to help us overcome our challenges. If we were deficits-based, we would focus only on our problems, which all of us have plenty of. But we try to, be as strengths-based as we can be positive, look at the good that's going on while acknowledging there are things that are very, very hard going on. But if we only focus on the challenges, it can be very difficult to see what is still going well. And so all of us are very positive, all of us are very motivated, and we firmly believe that it's your journey. It is not our journey. Don't want to decide how you should live your life. It is your life, but we can help guide you and for you to determine what are the best choices for you to make. What are the best habits for you to break? What are the best habits for you to start? And to sort of realize, how can I help myself? And there's very often a lot of times people don't really know. That's sort of the confusion. They know they want to change, but they really don't know exactly what that looks like. And so we can help them identify that and then identify what path they want to take to get there.
It's such an interesting thing, and I don't have an answer for this. Maybe you do, and if you don't, that's okay too. But it's like that thing where you're like, I know something's wrong or not right, but I don't know what right is. Why don't we know that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why is that so hard?
Because the thing is, that's the reason we can't figure it out, is we know it's off and our body tells us through either anxiety or depression or some sort of dysregulation. But very often when our brain is dysregulated, we can't see the obvious. That's why sometimes someone will say something to us and it's like, oh. And it's kind of like, yeah, you're right. And it's not that you don't have the capacity to see that, but it is that you don't have the capacity to see that, because when we're having a struggle, we're very much focused on that struggle, and I want to solve this, and we're not always able to step back. And a therapist, we're just a neutral party, and we can very often see unhealthy dynamics or things that could be a little bit better, and we can ask, hey, are you doing this? And sometimes people receive it as some genius piece of advice when it's actually not, except that your brain was so focused over here, it just didn't see the other piece.
And I love how you explain the difference on the different ways that therapy and counseling can be set up and having different focus. I was sexually assaulted in college and had mandatory therapy that I had to attend after that. And I felt no benefit from it whatsoever. So
Mhm.
For me, for many years, I thought therapy is not the answer. Therapy is not going to help me.
I bet you did.
And then when we had the crisis with our son, it was like, I don't know what else to do, kind of grabbing at straws, like, let's try therapy. And so I'm so grateful that we found you.
Yes, and it's been lovely working with you guys, but that is one of the things is therapy, forced therapy isn't likely to have the same results. Now, if it can get somebody in here and we can establish a positive working relationship, then yeah, it can be one of those things where they can get benefit out of it. But I think for you, you were still reeling
Mm.
from this violation, and then you're being forced to do something else. Well, sexual assault is a force. And so it was actually doubling down on what you were having to deal with. So it
I've never been
probably,
able to put that together.
yeah.
Thank you.
And you're welcome.
Because it was like a second violation. Like now I have to open up about all these feelings with the stranger. That was the last thing I wanted to do.
Exactly. You were already attacked and forced to be as vulnerable as you can possibly be. And then they're going to force you to be vulnerable. No,
Well, see,
that's why
this
that
is
didn't.
everyone listening, everyone watching. This is why Regina is amazing. And you can see that that just happened here live with like after, it was like 25 years ago. Being like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, that's right.
But that's how it is. A lot of people think they have to come to therapy and talk about their worst situations, and they're, oh, back in my father did this, and you don't. A lot of therapy is realizing I can just have a better today.
Mm,
I can acknowledge I was sexually assaulted in college. I can acknowledge the impact that had, but I don't have to sit here and delve on it and go through everything unless I want to.
right.
If I want to, I can. But therapy can still kind of put things together. And how do you feel? Because chances are, anytime you're feeling forced to do anything, there's probably a pretty visceral reaction from you.
Sure.
And so we look at that now and go, how's it impacting me today? And how do we get better? And that's normally how therapy really benefits people is, I realize I'm not the best at everything right now. I want to just improve things. And then if there's a deep dark thing you want to deal with, fantastic, we can, but it doesn't have to be dredging up every negative that you have.
Well, and I'm so glad that leads me perfectly into the next part I wanted to talk about. And that was in one of the services that you offer that we call here at our house colloquially brain training, but it's actually a company called Neuroptimal.
Yeah.
That, and I'll let you explain it. This is my like elementary understanding of it, or at least the experience of it, is you just go in and you put some nodes on your head
You
and
do.
you watch TV for 30
Yeah,
minutes.
if you want to watch TV, if you want to read a book, if you want to do yoga, totally up to you. Absolutely.
And I love that that's an option because it's not necessarily talking about it. It's not
Yep.
necessarily going to those places where you don't have to go. And I know for us, I think that was the magic key, with having the therapy that we were receiving, the medication that we were experimenting with and trying out, and then adding in this brain
Mhm.
training, it was like everything fell into place, and it was just a huge relief, and so much stress was reduced from us. So please tell us
Yeah,
a little bit more about what brain training is, and we don't have to get in the nitty-gritty of how it works, but
sure.
what people can
Well, hopefully
expect
I
for
can
it.
do hopefully I can do a good job of it. Basically it's neurofeedback. And so essentially we do two nodes on your head, two nodes on your ears, and then we ground on one ear. For 33 minutes is a typical session. And as you said, it can play soothing music. People can watch a movie. We have, lots of DVDs that have been kindly given to us. They can read a book. You can sleep if you want. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you have the ability to hear, because how this works is it analyzes your brain 256 times per second. And the analysis will determine when your brain is operating optimally. I have no idea how it does that. I don't know. But it's not trying to train your brain to be my brain or anything else. It actually analyzes when your brain is functioning optimally. And then if your brain skews, then it will interrupt the sound. So if you're watching a movie, it sounds like those of us who are old enough, a CD skip. It kind of interrupts back when you had to press play and the CD would get something on it and it
I
just
know my
interrupted.
Walkman, like all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how it works, and it's just enough of an interruption that it sort of brings your brain back to, oh, okay, back to focus. And so the more you do the training, kind of like when you would be training for a marathon, you're not going to just start today and be like, oh, I'm going to go run 26.1 miles. You're just not. You're going to go and you're going to go, okay, this is what I can do today. And so the brain training, it automatically analyzes it, and then it just does that. And the more you do it, the more your brain sort of is just in shape, if you will. It learns to just operate optimally.
Well, it made, not that, I mean, my son is, a tween, right? Like
Oh,
having
yes.
to come in and go sometimes was a challenge. Like, I
Most
don't want to have to
definitely.
go. But
Absolutely.
when we were watching these movies, it was like, do you remember what part of Ghostbusters we left off on? Like,
Hmm.
and so it kind of made that a little bit more fun and engaging, and it was something that he looked forward to. And teenage, pre-teenage boys, they don't want to talk all the time.
They do not. They do not. And it's a very effective way to get them some help, without, being my cousin, love his heart. He calls me a psychologist. I'm not a psychologist, but he's like, oh, I don't want to go to a psychologist, but that is how a lot of people feel. They feel like you have to be crazy or something has to be wrong with you to go to therapy. And so brain training is a very benign way. And, if someone says, well, what do you do? Oh, well, I go in and watch Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we watched, the Incredibles. Oh, well, yeah. And so it sort of takes the sting out of having an appointment, and it's fun and it's helpful. And, it's a really good thing, for people. As you said, it can be an adjunct to medicine. A lot of people want to try it before they try medicine, um, because medicine works great for a lot of people. It doesn't work great for other people.
Or
And
it's a
that's fine.
painful process to find the stuff that does work great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is one of those things where if you go the medication route or not, this is definitely a helpful element that we can do. And like I said, it's a 33-minute session. It runs, 45 minutes. By the time you get in there, you get hooked up, you do it, and you go. But we've seen enormous success with it. Like, neurofeedback's been around since the 70s, but technology has just now gotten to where we can offer it as an office-based service and just go with it, and people can run in and do it. We do track symptoms just to make sure that people are getting out of it what they say, what we hope they're getting out of it. For teenagers particularly, even older, coming into adolescence, one of the things that I've seen in every one of the people who has done it is their ability to put words to
Mm.
their emotions. Um, Before they would feel very agitated or aggravated or feel very intense something, but they didn't exactly know how to express what they were feeling, or they can suddenly identify, okay, that is agitation, that is sadness.
Mm.
And that's one of the biggest things we've seen across the board with people under 15. It's been very interesting.
And once you can name it, it's less scary.
it's less scary, and we can make a plan.
Yeah.
Because once we know what we're dealing with, then we can do something. Because the only person in the world that is not going to feel anxiety is a dead person.
Mm.
Same thing with depression. But once you can put it out there, anxiety is a biological advantage. Evolution developed it to let us know when we're in danger.
Right.
If you're walking in the woods and you're alone and suddenly there's a stick that breaks behind you and you didn't take a move, your anxiety is going to peak. Why? Because
It's
evolutionarily, it's exactly, there's a bear there. And so that tells you, hey, you're in danger. And so what happens is the worst thing for anxiety is the unknown. That's one of the things when you see someone ruminating on anxiety, it's, well, what if, what if, what if, what if? Well, once you know, even if you don't like it, you can deal with it. And that's the thing, is when we can get people to the place where they can actually identify what it is that's the root of the problem, not the symptoms up here, but what's actually the root of the problem, then we can deal with it. And we don't have all the huge emotional reaction. We just go right to the source and we say, okay, I had a guy the other day. Oh my gosh, this little guy, he was so upset because another kid told him that he couldn't have recess.
Oh,
Well, for an adult, it's like, well, that's another kid. That's adult thinking. Don't listen to him. That's another kid. Well, the little boy was just super, super sad because he didn't get recess. In his mind, he didn't get recess. And so we just had to meet him there and just say, sounds like you were really sad that you weren't going to get recess. Yes, yes, yes. And that's when, if we acknowledge right there, that's the core problem, is he didn't want to miss recess.
wouldn't want to
And
either.
exactly. If I could have recess, I would be very sad if someone took it away.
I'm sad just thinking that recess doesn't exist for adults right now.
Right? So, but we had to meet him there. We couldn't look at, oh, it's illogical. Why are you listening to another 8-year-old?
Yeah.
We have to meet him at the core of it, which was, I really like recess. And
Mm.
then once we know that that's what it is, then we can make a plan. Okay, if someone else tells you next time that you don't have recess, what do you do? Well, I can go and ask my teacher if I get recess before I have a big emotional response. And that fixed it. He was fine
Oh,
because then we knew what it was.
so that's an 8-year-old.
Hmm?
When we met you, we were 11. What
Yep.
kind of ages do you work with?
Well, I think as the practice as a whole, I have some people that are, their specialty is kids. So they started about 4. And then I have other people whose specialty is geriatrics. I think our oldest right now is 82.
Mm.
So we're kind of the gamut. Most are, I would say, either 15 to 22 or 35 to 45. There's sort of these, um, I guess, almost developmentally
Yeah.
significant, as people are getting ready to exit high school and make those post-graduation plans, or after people have sort of gotten their careers and or families started and then kind of going there. So we sort of have those. And then of course we have peppered, everything else,
Everything in between.
everything in between. So,
And you mentioned that there's other people in the practice, and that kind of goes to the name that you have, the Spencer and Associates, which you don't just stop there, then you add
yeah.
Therapeutic Alliance.
Yes.
So what's kind of the ethos for your office in terms of having this team, and kind of where do you see that growing?
So right now we have licensed clinical social workers, which is what I am. We also have licensed professional counselors, and we have licensed marriage and family therapists. My dream is to also incorporate speech therapists, occupational therapists, massage therapists, because we can all benefit all across the board. Doesn't mean we all need to be in therapy 5 days a week doing all kinds of stuff, but very often what we find is if someone is taking the time to really work on themselves, um, there's more than one area. And if we can, have a collaboration, an alliance to where we can have very trusted people that we know have a certain work ethic, that we know are going to treat people with dignity and respect, that we would just like to help people out across many gamuts.
I love that. I think that's a beautiful dream. And just, in today's society, we are a convenience society,
We
right? I mean, we don't have to cook. We're in a DoorDash, I don't want to
Absolutely.
drive. I'm going to Uber. So the idea of being able to go and get the therapies that we need all in one place just adds such a convenience factor. But, and you see people virtually as well. So even you don't even have to come to the office to still get help.
That
I
has
helped us
really,
a huge amount.
yeah. And that, a lot of people, even people who don't necessarily work in an office, we have a lot of people, as long as they're in a private space, we have factory workers who on their lunch just go sit in their car. And that way they're alone and they can do the virtual session. And we, of course, have the end-to-end encrypted video. But that has opened the door to a lot of people to receive services, because before you had to take off work and drive, and we're in Houston, so an hour here, have your an hour appointment and then an hour back.
Because what do we say in Houston? Like everything in Houston is an hour away from Houston.
Absolutely it is. Yes. And so that's one of the things that it really has opened that up, is that we can see people virtually. For people who do have an office, we can see them on their lunch hour. And it's been very, very helpful to have the virtual capabilities.
Well, and I love that you're catering so much to the working person as well, because it's not always easy to get away. And from what I understand, you're now incorporating a lot more with businesses in partnership. So not only are you giving them these options that are just great for their work life, but now the businesses and you guys are in an alliance as well.
We are,
So how is
yeah.
that working?
It's very good. It actually, at our location we were at previous to the one we're at now, but there was a company that sort of shared a backyard, if we will, but we backed up to each other. And we just kind of saw each other in the parking lot one day and we're like, hey, what do y'all do? Hey, what do y'all do? And I was talking with them, or excuse me, one of my employees, Maz, was talking with them. The great Maz, if you ever are here, she's fantastic. But Maz was talking, and the person she struck up a conversation with was actually with human resources, and Maz was like, look, why don't we talk about some lunch and learns? And so basically, we do 2 lunch and learns every couple months, and we just take an hour, and they have employees who are interested. It's not mandated, but employees who are interested, just the company buys lunch and we go over and we can talk about communication strategies. We can talk about what is stress, because everybody thinks of stress as negative. Stress is not necessarily negative. My wedding day was one of the most stressful days of my entire life. I guess we could talk about whether or not it turned out well, but 23 years in, I think it's probably a positive. But the day I had my son, that was incredible stress, but it was also good stress. Yeah. And so helping people tease out good stress and bad stress, but our body still reacts to stress, and helping people understand some of the symptoms of, what is stress? How might you react to it? And how can you control what you do, what your response is? And also, how do you respond to a coworker who is not handling their stress load well? It's not necessarily any of your business why, but how do we give people grace? but still hold boundaries. What are boundaries? A lot of people think boundaries are just rules and we don't like those. But no, boundaries are healthy. Boundaries are very healthy and they're for everyone's protection. I tell people all the time, imagine driving down 249 and there were no lines on the road.
Mm.
I mean, we can sort of all guess what's going on, but those boundaries help us know, okay, this is where I'm going to be. I'm in this lane. And unless I turn on my signal, you can count on me just being right here.
That is the best analogy for boundaries that I've ever heard, because
Oh,
you're not locked into anything.
no.
And the white lines are more easy to move. And then
Mhm.
the yellow lines are like, these are a bit more permanent. I shall not cross. But then there's emergencies.
But I
And
can
sometimes we
if I
cross
need
them.
to. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I
Oh,
can
that's,
if I need to. And it also helps other people know where you're operating.
yeah,
I might be in the second from left lane right now, and that maybe that's where I'm going to stay. But you also know that since I'm within that lane, if you will, that it's okay for you to get on the left of me and go around.
mm,
It's expected of you to do that. If I'm not operating in a manner that's fast enough for you, if you will. But also, if you're behind me and in my lane, great. But it's for everyone's safety, and there's a communication there that allows us all to be there and operate completely independent and yet completely interdependent on each
right.
other.
And we can have a whole nother conversation just about like nonverbal communication.
Yes, absolutely. But we go to companies, and we kind of do that. Like I said, we have one company in particular that they have given their employees sort of this opportunity that if they're coming to us for therapy, that they don't have to take the time off, that
Wow.
they can go do work on themselves and come back, and they're seeing a workforce that feels supported.
Yeah,
They're seeing a workforce that is more productive because they're getting the support they need from outside of the company, but also they feel supported by the company to be like, hey, you know what? I'm struggling right now.
sure.
And, therapy doesn't have to be a years long commitment. Sometimes you come in, you work it out, and you're done.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's our
Gosh,
hope. We want to work ourselves out of a job.
right? Well, what a beautiful model for other companies to adopt, because really the what you're getting out of it is so much greater than the hour
Yeah,
that is not getting counted against the PTO. Because I mean, just that alone could be a barrier for someone not going to get therapy.
absolutely. if
And
if you're on a week to week paycheck and you can't afford, and plus, if you don't have PTO, you can't take it, or then you're not going to have the time to take off to do when you need to, if you're sick, if you want to have time with your family, whatever. So this gives the people freedom to say, you know what, I'm giving myself an hour. And I always congratulate everybody that comes to therapy, because not all of us give ourselves an hour a week to just say, I'm going to do this for me, for my family. And I always congratulate everybody that comes in, because good for you. I
yeah,
can't say there every week I give myself an hour. I need to get back to it. But honestly, that is a really big deal. And the company that started doing this, like I said, they have really seen significant improvement in a lot of things. Even
that's
just
really
that
incredible.
they offer it, they said they've seen people really just kind of like, huh. And it sort of took the
Yeah.
stigma out
Even
of,
if they don't take it, right?
right? Absolutely. Just the fact that this company is saying, we value you enough that if you do need this, here it is to take it.
And
And if you don't, okay.
it's seeing them as the whole person,
Correct.
not just this professional part of you, and we're going to
Right.
ignore all the personal part of you. You are a whole person when you're at work. You're a whole person when you're at home.
Absolutely. And anybody who says, "Oh, I check my job at the door, or I check work at the door," highly unlikely.
I
And
think
maybe
it's
you do.
I think it's impossible with cell phones. With having
I agree.
smartphones, I think it's absolutely impossible to separate the two.
Mhm. Yep.
They're so intertwined
Yeah.
at this point.
It is so hard. I mean, I felt guilty even this morning because I very, very rarely text my employees, but this morning I got to hear at 6:15 we had no power. Well, we
Mm.
start seeing people at 6:30, so I had to text people and say, "Hey guys, we have no power. Let's pivot a little bit." And the guilt I felt, like I cannot believe that because I try very hard to respect that boundary. Because my people, I tell them, our job is not the easiest. It's certainly not the hardest, but it takes a lot of mental stuff. And so I try to completely respect that. And so when I had to break that at 6:15 this morning, I was like, oh, but
It
it
was
is.
just
It's
the
so
yellow
hard.
line. You just
Just
had
the
to cross
yellow
the
line.
yellow
That's
line.
right. Crossed it just this once. It was an emergency. Thankfully, we had power by 9:30, so we only lost a bit. But it's one of those things that's out of your control, and you just do it.
Speaking of things out of your control,
Yes,
the last
ma'am.
thing that I want to talk about kind of goes more into the ugly. I feel like we've really covered the good and the bad. Insurance,
Ah,
which I feel is just an ugly word. I know, and I should have actually, I'm saying this, I will have an insurance person on here in a future episode to get the other side of the story.
please
I'd like to
do.
have
Please do.
balance, but from what we've had to experience relating to insurance has just been such a headache and a place of constant opportunities to take a breath
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
practice what we preach. But you've had some really interesting experiences that things completely outside of your control.
Mhm.
I'd love to kind of hear just a little bit about what that story was and use it as a point for other business owners to say, hey, there's things outside of our control. What do we do next?
So there was a cyber attack back in February that compromised what's called a clearinghouse. And basically, any medical provider, you come in, you see me, I decide what the code is that we can bill for. And we, generate the note, generate everything, kind of lock it. That's basically the signal that it is ready to be sent to the insurance company. We've done everything we need to do when it's considered a locked chart. At that point, it is a billable service. And so we take all of those and we send them to what's called a clearinghouse. And the clearinghouse scrubs it and said, okay, yes, Regina does accept Cigna insurance. This person was active within, on this. Okay, this is what's called a clean claim. We can go ahead and send it on to the insurance company. So what happened was during the cyber attack, one of the main clearinghouses for the United States, not just Texas, but all the big insurers, all the big everything was attacked. And so it took our ability to submit claims to insurance companies. And it was not identified immediately. It
Mm.
took them a bit. A week after the cyber attack, I received a check in the mail, which very, very, maybe 0.5% of our monies from insurance company comes by check. So I thought it was odd anyway. But I received a check in the mail for $147,523, which
Whoa.
was a mistake. And I knew it was a mistake. So we called the insurance company and they were like, we've gotten several of these calls today. And so they, in their research and then blah, 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 come to find out there's a massive cyber attack. And so everybody had to disconnect. And it took our ability to submit those claims to that clearinghouse.
And just
So
to back up for a second, I
mhm.
mean, I know from my end what going through insurance looks like, but is that your main source of income is what comes back from these insurance
That
companies?
is 99% of my income.
So the part that we're paying the copay
Mhm.
at the front is 1%.
Yep.
And now you have lost the ability for that 99%.
I have.
Holy moly, what business could survive that?
And it's one of those things where it's not only that it was delayed for a day or two, we are still shut down from many of them.
And we're recording this in April. So
In
2
April,
months,
yeah.
6 weeks, something like that.
Yes, and we get updates every day from different insurers, and just gosh, the end of last week. So essentially, first week in April, we're like, okay, well, anything from February 21st on, even if it tells you, because on that date we were still up and running through the clearinghouse, and so essentially I would submit it to the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse would send me a message saying, hey, yeah, we sent it on to the insurer. So even if the digital footprint shows you that it was accepted by insurance, don't believe it.
Ugh.
You now have to print it, mail it, and let it be processed that way. Or you have the option to go to one of these other clearinghouses. Well, great, except this is 90% of healthcare providers in the nation.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, well, I can't go to that McDonald's, I'm going to go to this one, and you just show up. You have to register with all your provider information. You have to
Well,
register
even
with
to
your
take
tax
that
ID.
analogy a bit further, it's not going to another McDonald's. It's not being able to go to like any fast food.
Absolutely. Yes.
Restaurants are
Absolutely.
closed.
Yes. Yes. Restaurants are closed, and good luck getting into a grocery store is basically
Ugh.
what this has turned into. And so, yeah, I get, 40 to 60 checks in the mail a day for $30, $40, whereas usually claims were processed like batches. So everybody that the entire practice saw for, we'll just say United today, would all be processed, and then they would issue me one lump payment for all of those. Cigna would be batched together, and I'd get one lump payment. Right now, we are getting checks in the mail, and we all know how slow snail mail is.
Yes.
And so we're having to wait on that, and then I'm having to deposit it. My bookkeeper, bless her heart, is losing her mind because normally she has to, she can just look at it and go, oh, Aetna payment, put it over here. Cigna payment, put it over here. Amerigroup, put it over here. United, put it over here. Well, she can't see where the checks are coming from.
Oh my
And
God.
so the amount of manpower I'm having to pay her is an enormous extra cost on me. Plus, we've lost 90% of our revenue because all the claims are just out there, and we don't know when that's going to be fixed, and it's completely out of our control.
And we're not just, I mean, just your experience alone. Like, say there was just one glitch in the system and it only affected Regina Spencer.
Yep.
That would be such a nightmare. But this is multiplied and magnified.
This is 90% of the healthcare providers in America. There was a
Healthcare providers, not even mental health care.
Oh, no. All health. I mean, all the hospitals.
Everyone.
Every single medical claim that is happening in the United States of America has been affected. 90% of them, excuse me. Yes.
Wow.
There was a hospital in North Carolina this past weekend that had to take out a $45 million line of credit in order to absorb some of this. Well, I don't have those resources. I don't have that. I can't just go get our payroll on a line of credit. I don't have it. I'm a small business.
Right. How many small business owners can do that?
Yeah. And so that's a real challenge. My sweet bookkeeper messages me every morning and says, okay, this is our balance. Okay, this is this. And, but it's nothing anybody could have done to see this coming.
So how do you, as a human, reconcile this thing happening to you?
I call my therapist.
Good answer.
No, in all honesty, I have to practice what I preach, and I have to take everything one day at a time.
Mm,
And today, I, you know, did the best I could. I'm certainly not buying anything we don't need to buy. I do have some employees who are more fortunate, who have spouses, and they can hold their checks, their payroll checks, for a few days,
wow.
to try to allow us. And but I've been very transparent with everyone of this is the situation. Um, I, and they know it because everyone in our field is talking about it because everyone's affected. But I don't have the resources of a Houston Methodist or a Texas Children's to work with bankers. I just don't. And so I'm very transparent with everyone. My employees have been brilliant. They're still coming to work. Nope, we're here. We're good. We'll get through this.
Mm,
And just lots of hoping and praying, really, and just trying to reach out to bankers who are kind of like, your cash flow isn't showing
yeah.
that you're doing what you say you're doing. And it's like, you're right, it doesn't, and here's why.
Like, I
So that's,
promise we are.
yeah, it's been a big challenge.
Well, I just think that's such a good reminder for us as in business, as us people, things happen.
Yeah.
Whether it's this cyber attack, whether it's a natural disaster, there's just things beyond our control that no matter how well we plan for, it just happens.
Mhm.
And it's how we choose to react to it. It's how what we do next. I mean, you can only be proactive to a certain point,
Mm.
and reactive doesn't have to be a dirty word. You
No,
can react positively, you can react with integrity, you can react
absolutely.
optimistically.
And it's also okay to sit and cry. I mean,
Yeah.
I have, because I feel like I'm letting my employees down. And of course they're like, no, you're not. And logically, I know I haven't done anything wrong. But you still feel as a human being, especially when you own the business, these people trust me. These people gave up other jobs to come work for me. And here I am like, oh, hey, can you hold your paycheck? I mean, that's terrible. That's terrible. But fortunately, we've been in business long enough and this hasn't happened before. They know that this isn't, something I do, but
Well, and it wouldn't really matter no matter where they were working, right? If it's affecting
exactly. If they're
everybody.
in the field, exactly, exactly. So that's one of the things, we do have a really strong staff, and I'm so blessed to have everybody we do. But that's how I sleep at night. And some nights I don't sleep too well, but I always have to tell myself I've done everything I can.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. Um, and I just have to just
We just move forward.
do it. Yeah, show
Yeah.
up and keep doing what I've been doing, and hopefully we'll be able to keep doing what we've been doing.
Well, I know that you guys are so great and amazing that it will come back and bounce back in whichever way, shape, or form it does. But I really appreciated you sharing all of this with us. Thank you for coming on here. Please tell everyone how they can reach out to you. How's the best way to work with you, to learn more about you, all the good stuff.
Okay, well, we have a website. It's www.spencertherapies, that's plural.com. They can email if they want an appointment. We are in network with almost all major insurances. I don't think there's any major insurance we're not. We do take Medicare. We're in TRICARE as well. Um, you can email appointments@spencertherapies.com, or you can call us at 832-756-2749.
And I will have all of that in the show notes for anyone listening to just click on. But thank you so much, Regina. This has been
Oh,
really great.
thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Always good to see you.
You too. And to the listeners, thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Let's make sure that we can help spread this information because it's great information and more people need to hear it. If there's something that you're curious about, whether it's profession, a certain industry, a person, let me know. I'd love to reach out and find that special someone for you. Until next time, everyone, take care.